Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. I'm Sally Burdett, live from Johannesburg. In your headlines tonight, as the downtown Joburg fire rages for a second day, reinforcements have moved in to control the blaze and people living in neighbouring buildings have had to be evacuated. The state capture inquiry hears the Gupta family won't return to South Africa to testify because they say the Hawks are, quote, a national embarrassment.
Tell you, my brother, from another mother, we are going to take our land, whether you like it or not.
A heated land debate in Parliament as AfriForum presents their views to the Parliamentary Constitutional Review Committee. Of course, we also have sport and business news. It's a very good evening to Mateo Geripe and Jeffrey Stevens.
Good evening, Sally. Coming up, Peter Steph Toya is elated at being back in the starting lineup for the Springboks versus Wallabies clash. In business, Moody's downgrades the country's growth forecast, while FNB says the country needs 3 to 4% to stay clear of trouble.
Well, let's start our bulletin in downtown Johannesburg. The fire, which started in a government building yesterday and claimed the lives of 3 firefighters, flared up again today. Reinforcements from the city of Ekurhuleni and Tshwane, along with a military helicopter, were called in to help douse the flames, which at one point seemed quite out of control. Residents from nearby buildings were evacuated late this afternoon. Let's go live now to my colleague Kathy Motlatlana. Good evening, Kathy. Thank you so much for coming to us. Please, can you tell us whether this fire has been contained and put out?
Well, good evening to you, Sally. Contained, yes. Put out, not completely. We have teams that remain on the 15th and 16th floors of the Bank of Lisbon building that's behind me. The good thing, though, is that the water that was being sprayed into the building and the foam that was sprayed into the building on the lower levels has now stopped, which means that firefighters are confident that even if there should be further flare-ups tonight, they certainly won't extend to parts of the building that have not been affected. But the one question that many will be asking about is accountability. What happens from here on? Who must be held responsible? To answer that question, the Public Servants Association's Tahir Maeba is standing by with me. Tahir, it's a question that undoubtedly you'll be asking officials.
Definitely. Our view is that now is payback time. The MECs, the heads of departments, heads must roll. They must take responsibility for this tragedy. Because, like we said, we have warned them about the situation in this building, but they never heeded our call. For 2 years, we've been trying to reason with them. They never listened. We could have avoided this tragedy if only they listened. And like I said before, this is not an accident. This is murder, and for that, there must be consequences.
We've seen officials out and about trying to give reasons for why what happened. Are you satisfied with what they've put on record, that they were in the process of moving people?
How can you be in the process of moving people for 2 years? What kind of a move is that? It's only 1,000 employees, 3 departments. In 2 years, they waited for this to happen. No, that's an excuse that they are using for public discourse. The reality is these people were negligent for 2 years. As early as last week, we warned them again about the situation in this building. But they never listened. They chose not to listen. And for that, we believe that there's no way that the lives of those firefighters, it can be in vain. They must pay the price for this tragedy.
What happens from here on from your perspective as a union?
Well, what's going to happen now, obviously, we're going to make sure that our members, wherever they are placed, they are also not placed in buildings that do not comply. Because majority of the government buildings in Johannesburg do not comply with Health and Safety Act in any case. And we are going to make sure that those buildings where our members are, we are also going to withdraw them from there. And if it means that we are going to use the court to interdict this department from utilizing those buildings, that's exactly what we are going to do.
All right, well, certainly it seems like there's still a long way to go on this particular issues, and officials will still have a lot to account for beyond the putting out of that fire. But as it stands, those teams remain here on scene. But by the looks of things, by tomorrow this time, the scene should be cleared, at least from the perspective of the firefighting efforts. Sally, back to you.
Thank you so much. That's Kathy Motlatlana coming to us live from downtown Johannesburg. Just to recap, the fire is definitely contained. Now, we heard this last night. The difference tonight is that the lower floors have been filled with foam and water, so they are confident they can keep that fire under control and prevent it from flaring up again. Let's move on now. The Gupta brothers say they'll appear before the state capture inquiry if it is set up outside South Africa. They're not coming back to the country to face arrest, they say. Now, lawyers for the family applied to the commission today to cross-examine witnesses. They made it clear that the Guptas have no respect for the National Prosecuting Authority. Aldrin Sampier reports.
This is what RJ Gupta thinks of our criminal justice system.
They are facing the hawks, who are incompetent in their investigating powers, as demonstrated in those two cases and the judgments, and a National Prosecuting Authority that wielded its power with reckless incompetence.
This in reference to a court ruling that released the assets belonging to companies and associates linked to the Guptas, which then, as Justice Raymond Zondo argues, means that the judiciary is independent.
If you have incompetent police, incompetent NPA, doesn't logic say, then you have very good prospects that they will mess up. And if they will mess up, then you'll get an order from a judge within hours.
But by the Gupta lawyers' own admission, RJ Gupta is central to the Commission of Inquiry. The evidence leaders, though, are not convinced it's worth travelling to Dubai.
By the way, at the end of the day, Chairperson, it may well be that you can get better evidence relating to whether they're innocent of the allegations or guilty of the allegations from other sources. And therefore, their evidence is not so fundamentally important.
The other problem Zondo highlights, if he finds there should be a criminal prosecution, it could be difficult to secure the Gupta's arrest. Meanwhile, Duduzane Zuma, who has applied to cross-examine former Deputy Finance Minister Mcebisi Jonas, says he won't appear before the commission because of the criminal case based on the Jonas allegations. Jonas will be back at the commission for cross-examination, and so will Fakey Mentor. Aldrin Sampier, Johannesburg.
To Parliament now, and MPs from a number of political parties have condemned lobby group AfriForum. The self-styled Afrikaner group was one of several organisations to make presentations to Parliament's Constitutional Review Committee on the land issue. Now, AfriForum raised the ire of many MPs, claiming no land was stolen during colonialism and apartheid. Lester Kivet has the story.
We are going to take our land, whether you like it or not.
The EFF pulling no punches after AfriForum's submission that it's a fallacy that white people stole land.
We should not let this issue be derailed into a racial issue. Unfortunately, the President has already done so when he used the words "our people" to refer to black people.
These words got other MPs just as fired up.
You are a descendant of voortrekkers and other people like missionaries who would come to an area, find people, and say that they have discovered people, and therefore the land is theirs. And you call that land empty land.
My father had no millet fields on which to, and you want that to be repeated. You have the guts to come to this legislature to tell us that you want that to be repeated.
Also to make presentations were Khoisan groups. They say any land reform program must consider land taken previously owned by indigenous groups before the 1913 Native Land Act was passed.
This 1913 is the impediment. This is the reason why our nation is up in arms, and there are people who are really bitter that in democracy we left the First Nation people outside.
The Constitutional Review Committee will spend their final day of public hearings listening to the banking sector. Lester Kivet, Parliament.
Unhappy white employees at Sasol are taking the company to the Human Rights Commission. They say they're being excluded from owning shares in the company because they are white. The workers affiliated to Solidarity have been on strike since Monday. Today they handed over a memorandum to management in Secunda. Malungelo Boy was there.
A gathering of those who say they are being marginalized because of the color of their skin. And the culprit, they say, is Sasol. Their gripe is the rollout of Phase 2 of Sasol Khanyisa, an employee share ownership plan for only black permanent staff. But the white workers have the backing of some of their black colleagues.
I'm the beneficiary of the scheme, which is good. So what is good for me is good for my colleagues as well.
He feels the company is being divisive.
If you're playing the piano, you must play, you've got the white and the black knobs in the there to play the music. And if you play the music, you don't play only the blacks to get the right music, and you don't play only the white to get the right music.
Solidarity says the fight is not about black and white.
Workers are workers. So if it comes to workers, then you don't discriminate on grounds of race, then you don't divide on grounds of race if it comes to share ownership schemes.
The company says Sasol Khanyisa is not part of an employee remuneration or benefit structure. Its aim is transformation in the form of share ownership in the company by those who were previously disadvantaged. Malungi Lupui, Secunda.
Let's take a look at other stories making headlines today. 3 months after his dramatic walkout during a live broadcast, SuperSport has confirmed that rugby commentator Ashwin Willemse won't be going back on air. Willemse's contract has expired and won't be renewed. Willemse had an on-air spat with fellow analysts Nick Mallett and Nas Botha in May. He accused them of undermining him and of being racist. Mallett and Botha have since been cleared by an independent inquiry and they've returned to SuperSport. The Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Michael Masuta, has 120 days to decide whether to give Janus Valus parole. Today, the North Gauteng High Court overturned an earlier decision by the Justice Minister to deny parole for Chris Hani's killer. Judge Selby Bakwa has now given Masuta 4 months to consider the matter again. Stay with us on eNews. Coming up, the controversy surrounding the Nike brand has reached the White House, with Donald Trump criticizing the new advertising campaign.
On the market, the local market closed flat today, while the local currency staged a mini fight back.
This is eNews. Time to talk money now with Mateo Gripe. Mateo, Moody's, what are they saying about us?
Well, it's like a house of cards, really, after the recession. You know, everyone is really coming in to, weigh in on South Africa's economic situation. And they're saying, they're revising their growth prospects for the country. They had 1.5% for 2018, but they're saying it should be between 0.7 and 1% to go into the end of the year. They are forecasting that maybe the Reserve Bank will be tight with inflation going up and also the rand going down. So there are some tight policy decisions that are to be made there. But the FNB CEO, Jacques Sillier, is also weighing in on the country's growth problems. He says the country might need a little more than 1.5% to grow. He says 3 and 4% will get us out of trouble. Here's what he said about the country's growth.
We've got very low expectations of what the macros can deliver for us. I think there's just an adjustment that is underway at the moment. So it's if we're lucky, it'll get to the ones. But this side or that side of a one doesn't actually get us out of the trouble. We have to get to the 3s and 4s, to get us into the game. So it's unfortunate that we're going through the technical recession stuff at the moment. It's bad for confidence. But I think, we all as a nation, we can dig deep and we can lift our heads, and we must just soldier on.
Sounds like war talk. Dig deep, soldier on, lift our heads. I love it.
Anything to get us up there again.
So how are the markets soldiering on?
Well, they were flat today, so not too much soldiering on today. Investors running away from markets that are, quite a risk to them. The all share was up just marginally. Industrials also in the same region, while financials were up because of that fighting rand. And in terms of mining shares, they were also up marginally. Gold enjoying some gains today. Platinum was flat, while resources closed the day down by more than 1%. And in currencies, the rand fighting back now as investors are looking to get some sort of return from the rand. It's at 15 rand 32 against the greenback now. It's 17 rand 80 against the euro, and at 19 rand 81. Still some risk with the US and China trade definitions there. Price of gold at $1,198 an ounce, while platinum was up more than 0.5% today, with Brent crude at $76.18 a barrel, down 1%.
Well, I'm going to hold on to every little positive thing we can. The rand fought back a tiny bit today.
We should.
Thank you so much, Mateo Khalipa, for the market news this evening. Let's now take a look at international headlines. And US President Donald Trump has criticized Nike for its new advertising campaign. The campaign features Colin Kaepernick, the NFL quarterback, who sparked controversy in 2016 by kneeling in support of the Black Lives Matter movement during the playing of the national anthem. Now, Trump tweeted that the sportswear company was, quote, getting absolutely killed with anger and boycotts. The Nike payoff line is, believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. Now, Kaepernick is currently without a team. Ahead, we're going to go down to Cape Town for your live weather bulletin. And then she married a prince. Now she's been named as People magazine's best dressed woman of 2018. Things are good for the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle. And let's take a look at your weather news this evening.
Welcome to the Weather Center. We have a cut-off low in the upper levels of the atmosphere that has been working throughout Thursday with this cold front to maintain rain and thundershowers across the Cape provinces and also over parts of the northwest and the Free State. The cold front has also been pushing cold air into parts of the northern and western Cape, where we stayed with rain showers and light snowfalls in some places. Now we start off Friday with isolated thundershowers extending from the northwest through Gauteng and Mpumalanga down into KwaZulu-Natal, and this low pressure system will be driving a lot of rain-bearing clouds into the western and eastern Cape provinces, where pretty wet weather conditions are expected, as well as some snowfalls in some areas. And the cold air will be blasting into the western and central parts of the country throughout your Friday. Now we have a warning in place for heavy rains that could reach and exceed 50 millimeters in 24 hours through Friday over parts of the south coast. A warning is also in place for disruptive snowfalls over the highlying areas of the western and eastern Cape provinces. We also have a warning in place for high fire danger conditions for parts of Gauteng, Limpopo and the Mpumalanga province. Now we are going to have fresh winds for much of northeastern South Africa, including much of Limpopo, Gauteng and the eastern areas of the Free State. Otherwise, the rest of the country should experience light to moderate winds blowing mostly from the southwest. Now here's taking it closer to your part of the country. It will be mostly sunny but chilly for the northeastern areas of the northern Cape. We are going to see rain showers for the western and southern sections, with snowfalls expected around Sutherland. It's going to be cloudy with rain and thunderstorms across much of the western Cape. Cape Town will stay stuck at the 14-degree mark on Friday afternoon. Pretty wet weather can be expected for your Friday along much of the south coast. It's also going to be pretty cold for these parts of the country. George peaking at just 11 degrees. We are expecting unsettled weather across the rest of the eastern Cape, where it's also going to be pretty cold for much of the interior. East London will make it to around 17 degrees on Friday afternoon. Thunderstorms are forecast for much of KwaZulu-Natal. Top temperatures in the lower 20s for most areas. However, it will be warm for the northeastern sections. We are expecting thundershowers to start early in the day across much of the Mpumalanga province. Hot from Bombeda, peaking at around 32 degrees. Thundershowers are also forecast across much of Limpopo, where it's going to stay pretty warm in most areas. Musina making it to around 37 degrees on Friday afternoon. Thundershowers are also expected for the eastern areas of the northwest. It will be partly cloudy and dry, however, for Mahikeng, warming to a mild 23 degrees. We are expecting isolated rain and thundershowers for the eastern areas of the Free State. Dry, however, for Bloemfontein, making it to just 16 degrees on Friday afternoon. It will stay warm across the Gauteng province. However, we will also see thundershowers starting early in the day across much of the province. On Saturday, unsettled weather is forecast for parts of Limpopo, Mpumalanga and KwaZulu-Natal. Isolated rain showers for parts of southern South Africa. Then on Sunday, we should see lots of sunshine for the bulk of the country, but it will be fairly wet for parts of Mpumalanga and KwaZulu-Natal.
Thank you so much, Joe. We're so looking forward to a little bit of rain here in Johannesburg. And finally, Meghan Markle. Is she the woman that has it all? First, she married a prince. Now the Duchess of Sussex has been named People magazine's Best Dressed Woman of 2018. Markle beat Hollywood A-listers such as Kate Blanchett, Kim Kardashian, Tracy Ellis Ross and Amal Clooney to top the celebrity publication's annual list. Now, People say Markle is deserving of the accolade because of her polished look that mixes retail clothing with designer couture, and she often, shock horror, flouts royal protocol. Well, let's recap your top story this evening. And it seems the downtown Joburg fire, which has raged for a second day, is now under control. Authorities say they have a plan if there are flare-ups overnight, but people have been evacuated in the inner city. From me and the team, it's a very good night.